Hi folks, welcome to Better Boston Arts, the interview series asking experts how the Boston art scene can rebuild after the coronavirus pandemic. I'm DigBoston executive editor Jason Pramas, and today I'm talking to Boston filmmaker and multimedia artist Maria Servellón. Hi Maria, thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to
Cool.
be here.
So, we're going to just sort of jump right into it as we have been in previous weeks. Why don't you tell us anything and everything about yourself, who are you, where you're from, what do you do? I mean, we said where you're from, but say more about where you're from, what you do, what kind of artwork and film work you do, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, sure. Um, Again, I'm Maria Servellón, and I am a native Boston filmmaker, multimedia artist. In the filmmaking aspects, I do writing, directing, and producing. In the multimedia aspect, I do installation, video work, glitch art, video mix. I work a lot with projectors and have fun with them. And yeah, I'm a affiliate faculty at Emerson College and at Northeastern.
Cool. And of your more recent work, what would you like to tell folks about?
Sure. So recently in pandemic, as filmmaking has been put on pause and sets are still on the fence of all of that. I had a film that I've put on pause named Phantasma, which is my next latest film after my 2018 film Hyphen. So Phantasma will be coming back out, back on onto set whenever things are a little bit safer. And since then, I've been doing a lot of like live glitch art, um, works pieces. I have a piece up on the at the Tillwave Gallery in Watertown. The Boston Latinx Collaborative Art Project has my work up an upcoming print catalog. The Somerville Arts Council has one of my projections that will be going up next month. So yeah, all of these things that I've been tinkering with here at home are now going out and about. So it's been not bad at all.
You've
Yeah.
actually been productive during the pandemic, so that's sounds good.
Yeah.
And have you been able to teach at all, or what? Like, how's that going?
Yeah, I'm teaching my classes online and in person, so this flex model. I'm teaching ways of seeing at Emerson College.
Oh,
What's the difference between
interesting choice of title.
seeing and looking, right? And yeah, it's just been coming at a great time, and I teach I co-teach with uh, another scholar, Claire Andrade Watkins, The Real Race in and Out of Hollywood. It's a cinema studies class in Black culture in Hollywood, where it's been, where it's going. And then I'm helping a thesis student just about to graduate at Northeastern with his app that he's working on at the moment. So I've been busy, but it's been like a good kind of busy, I would say.
Sounds like it. So, to ease into the major questions, what pulled you into the arts, and specifically in Boston? And then it sounds like from the responses you gave me in text before this interview, it sounds like you've traveled a bit too. Yeah, what impelled you to become a filmmaker and artist?
Yeah, I mean, it's been something that I've been doing since I was very young. Like just my parents giving me lots of crayons and lots of coloring books to fill out and fill the time with that. Giving a camera to me on my birthday, and my dad being like, "Hey, go shoot something." I'm like, "Okay."
Nice.
Um, so yeah, so my parents is kind of giving me materials and items to find something to do with it, right? And so and I've that I feel like that's where I've like just feel more comfortable in when I'm actively creating, making something, whether it's in the digital realm or like in physical with my hands. So that's where I've been with my work and going to school for it. I'm an alumna of UMass Boston and
Me
at
too.
Emerson.
Hey.
Oh, hey.
Hi.
Yeah. Yeah, I got my bachelor's of studio art there, and
Nice.
I enjoyed it so much. It was so good. Former psych major turned into studio art person, and then I went to Emerson College for my MFA in film and media art, and I
Cool.
enjoyed it there as well. And I'm happy to be back there teaching again. Working in the Boston Public Schools, K through 12, helping students find their voice, find what makes them uh, dream and passion with passion. And so yeah, so then I was like, okay, well, let's get out there and practice what you teach. So
Nice.
yeah.
So you've got all the Boston cred any artist could hope for. So you're definitely a good person to ask this question. I mean, although we're talking, in this series, I'm talking to people about Boston area arts, but of course the
Mhm.
core of that is the Boston scene.
Yeah.
So what kind of problems did you see in the Boston scene, or scenes, as some of our interviewees have framed it, prior to the pandemic?
Mhm.
Stuff that was bothersome, that bothered you, that hurt people, whatever, that you think is worth highlighting.
So I love traveling. I love being out and about. And whenever I travel, the first thing I want to do is like, okay, what's the art scene of the city, right? So, um, whether it's here in the U.S., New York, L.A., San Fran, Austin, whether it's internationally, like Tokyo,
Huh.
Seoul, Barcelona, what's happening, right? And so like I'm all for like going out for like food and drinks and like touristy stuff, but what is it of the city that makes it very vibrant and gives it color and how are they supporting it's city dwellers that work as artists. And so there's Boston that I don't really 100% see it yet, the art scene. And I was born here, and
Yeah.
um but like, and I'm not like completely like criticizing it, but I feel like if you love something so much, you should be able to think about how can it get better? How can it improve, or is it being equitable, and is there enough for everybody? And I feel like Boston hasn't found that footing very, very well yet, pre-pandemic. So, um, I believe like, when you travel to these cities, if you're going to New York, something's happening at night. Something's going, like, you grab a group of people and you head out and you'll find some kind of event happening, whether it's like live poetry readings, live murals going up, um, art gallery showings, like you know, people who do installation, like video installations, like taking up spaces, making happenings happen. And I feel like that's missing in Boston. I feel like there's not enough of these events, or they probably exist in they're in somebody's basement. I don't know. It's very possible. I've been to a couple of these like events that happen at somebody's house because
Yeah.
people want to see it and might as well do it in my house. So I feel like these are some of the things that are kind of missing, like that edge that somebody from out of the city comes in and knows or has an idea where can they go to for the latest art happening. So
So do you think that there's a problem with media in Boston, for starters, covering the arts, right? And secondarily, well, not secondarily, also then problem with venues, lack of venues in Boston compared to other cities?
I feel like most of it is venues. Whenever there's has been like a friend of mine having like a photography exhibition, or even me like having some kind of event, I definitely see it everywhere. I see people sharing it on social media, and it goes onto the Boston calendar and things like that. But um, you know, but the amount of times it happens throughout the year, I don't feel like there's something happening every night or day, for
Yeah.
people who are prefer to do daytime things. Um, and even looking at the Boston calendar, I noticed that a lot of these events are like, create something, etc. And it's like, $40, $50 to participate in
Well,
it.
yeah, yeah. And there's
So,
like several Boston calendars, so like it's some people look
mhm,
at some people look at others, some don't look at any calendars, right? So
yeah. And so, and when you think about the people that don't look at the calendars, like, do they know where to go, right? Do they know where to
probably not.
find something? So, and then where are the venues, right? And so, that's something that I'm like, uh, what can be done about it? I see lots of empty buildings. I see lots of, empty storefronts, but they're not activated.
Certainly now, yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
and in different neighborhoods, there's always empty
yeah,
storefronts and stuff. Although bigger spaces have been thin on the ground because a lot of those spaces were either converted into condos, commercialized in some other way, or like the previous generations of artists had already converted those places into spaces, and that's it. And whoever's in there is in there. You know,
yeah, yeah.
and we're even losing some of those spaces.
Hmm.
But yeah, and in other spaces, I'm sorry, in other cities, you just see more of this stuff, more things happening, plus more communication and more people participating, and it sounds like cheaper
Yeah.
to some extent. And I have not hung out in all those cities, but I've hung out in some of them, so I
Hmm.
have a sense that that's true. Okay, I mean, so like then, the other big question is, how would you improve the situation in Boston then? If we agree that these are problems, then
Hmm.
what would you think? What do you think that city government, state government, as well as like all kinds of other, nonprofits and, commercial interests and, just people in people land should do about these problems?
So, like, I feel like the pandemic helped, people, like, things had to get refreshed. So first there was like a series of cancellations of things. Like,
Yeah,
I had a show at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum that got canceled, and that was like a big deal for me because I was like, oh, this is like my first museum show,
yeah, I did
part
a
of
show there. It's a thing. So
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
like third Thursdays, which I miss, and and even in the representation of how many women and how many people of color are in the museums, that
yeah.
so it's like amplified the big deal of it. And so instead of like, well, what do I do, right? So like I applied to grants, so that was super useful because let's be real, like artists a lot of times are expected to present, show, like create a piece of work and do something really great, but it's often unpaid, and a lot of
Yeah.
us, we're doing what we can. We're taking up jobs that like isn't necessarily our first choice.
Yeah.
Um, and then we're part of that gig economy that suffered immensely, and we don't know when we'll be back. So financial help or assistance from the city was great. These grants, and there was also like these spotlights of artists, right? So highlighting like who's in the city, who's in your city, right? Does I live in East Boston, but does everybody in
Okay.
East Boston know me? I don't think so.
A lot of transients these days. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And but slowly I've been getting to know like people from the JP, like the Hyde Park High Task Force folks. Like I didn't get
Oh
to know
yeah.
them
Hyde
until
Square
this
Task Force. Yeah.
pandemic. Um so that was from like reaching out, finding each other online, and I'm like, why didn't we know each other for a long time? And people from Cambridge, Somerville, Alston people. Where
Yeah.
why are we not like reuniting and like getting to know each other? Why did it take a pandemic to finally meet each other?
This is a general complaint that I've been hearing and experiencing also. And I just moved to Somerville,
Hmm.
after being in Cambridge for a long time, weirdly. And there's a lot of an older volunteer in a journalism project we have going in Somerville through my nonprofit, the one I run with Chris Ferrone and John Loftus, Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. Um, he said, we just have a bunch of silos, and there's no communication between the silos. Right?
Yeah.
So that seems to, and it's weird because everyone's suffering the same, slings and arrows of injurious fortune, but there's not a lot of pulling together.
Yeah. Especially in art making, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, which is a weird thing. People are very individual too, and yet, so people want to work together, but they also want their own space. And
yeah.
in the past, when we a few years ago tried to organize the Mass Creative Workers, group, kind of echoing artists' union movements in the late '60s and early '70s in Boston and other cities, it just didn't work. It was like herding cats to some extent. So.
I wonder how much of it is like just Boston's you know, attitude or like introvertedness
We
that
have
are
Tude. Yes.
yeah, like so, and seeing like places in New York and Alston, like people like do spruce like bookstores up, thrift stores. They'll have like a band in a thrift store. It's very unconventional and unnormal, but like, people are shopping and yet they're listening to live music or there's like a reading or something. So I think that's like really cool when places do that, or like stores and things like that. Um, I was part of the area code art fair during the
Mm.
pandemic, and I saw like all of these. I've before the pandemic, I was open applying to like open art calls and
Yeah.
getting in sometimes or not, but like very passively going about it. And then like during pandemic, like I saw like a huge influx of open art calls and let's do like art talks on Zoom and let's you know um screen something on a projection screen somewhere in like at the mall or whatever. So I feel like my art career kind of like boosted from that. After all of these cancellations and lost gigs,
Right.
like the amount of people that I've now connected with or that I know of that we finally meet or that, oh hey, like my show now is at the Cambridge side, or my piece is up at the Cambridge side Galleria. That's so cool. Um, you know, so that was really good. But referring back to the area code art fair, um, I really enjoyed that show because we were able to activate like storefront displays of empty, these ghost town like streets during the pandemic and having a little bit of action and movement going on.
Mm.
My piece, I had two pieces up, and one of them, we went to the Salem State Complex
Hmm.
to be able to screen it on like a drive-in theater, and that was super cool. I've never been to a drive-in
Oh, really?
show. Yeah.
I'm old, so yeah, I'm 54. So I
So,
have been to a drive-in. Yes, even a non-ironic drive-in when I was
yeah.
a kid, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, where did they go, So,
Um, well,
um,
well,
yeah.
basically, VHS came out. People started like watching movies at home, and
Yeah.
then theaters started getting bigger and fancier, and there's more of them. That's my snap analysis. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, but it was certainly an experience. Like I had made like a music mix and hearing it from the car radio was like so it was amazing. And I had a projection piece that was projecting off like one of the buildings from on campus
Mm-hmm.
and other people had their pieces all together. So like all pieces are moving and it's like really dark at night. The whole like neighborhood's like dark and quiet, but we have all of these like glowing imagery going up and about and I really enjoy being part of that because I was like, oh, look at us. Like we are making the Salem uh glow a little bit and like people are here, and I see people in the cars like really excited, and people are dancing in their cars and like laughing and like so. But there was like this urge to like, oh, I wish I could meet like who's here, like what other artists are here. I want to like talk and chat and mingle. Like, what were your techniques? How did you do this? How did you do that? And so yeah, so just kind of like thinking about how can we reframe what is a venue and what is an art call, and how do we get these events to not just be like you have to be an artist to be here, but
Well,
how do we
right.
open it up?
And I mean, this is a during the pandemic problem, which I wasn't asking people, although people have answered as you are too, because of course we're all dealing with it. But I was like, let's try to get ahead of like everything we're dealing with as artists and stuff after the pandemic. Once we can do the stuff we did, once we can really be out and about. Because I mean, even though for an artist like yourself, you can still do work in this environment as you have. For others, like in theater, like they're getting crushed. Like we have a theater editor at DigBoston, and we haven't had anything much to write about. There's been some outdoor shows, yeah, but it's just not the same.
Yeah.
So like all that's going to come back, once the pandemic's over. That's why I sort of jumped the question to like, well, what do we do afterwards, right? And I mean, what you're talking about, certainly, I mean, a lot of folks are talking about like we need more of a scene. Like, well, let me ask you, I mean, do you think it's worth it to stay in Boston and make a scene and make a career here? You think that's possible, doable, or do you think it's easier to just go to New York City, go to LA, go to whatever other bigger place and do it there? Berlin is hot these days, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a question that lots of folks have asked me. Most artists go to places and stay or you know and will be there for good. I'm one of the like people that have decided to stay here for now, but that's something that I've questioned myself. So being one of the like activists that is working for the city to notice us, to not forget it,
Mm-hmm.
to not chop our like funding off completely, to have more artists be present. Do I want to be a big fish in a little pond, or do I want to be a little fish in a big pond kind of scenario? And the concept of like of starting from scratch all over again in like LA, where nobody knows me, but here in Boston, I can have this experience of like, okay, uh, in talking with people, okay, what did we learn about the pandemic? How did the arts blossom within this time? What happened? Why did it take a pandemic for things to get moving and the gears to be turning, and suddenly we have grants happening and we have shows and we have art talks and things like that. So how do we keep that momentum going after everything is
Yeah,
over?
well,
Because
that's definitely my question or part of
mhm,
it. Yeah.
yeah, so that's something that like for me, I'm happy to help with come up with ideas for that, to be able to you know like show like, hey, this is what this group did, this is what we did here, this is how we you know why how do like why don't we continue doing this every Saturday night? Maybe something can happen here or here. um and yeah.
So do you
um
think like, government, city level, state, federal needs to put more money into the arts? I mean, that's kind of a easy question.
yeah, I think so. I think that there should always be something saved or something left over, or even designated for artists working in Boston, because we are a smaller city, and so yes, there's like probably like less resources than like California, which is huge,
We're
but
pretty. There's a lot of rich people here, so like,
yeah, yeah.
yes and no.
But there's certainly like we have like good art museums, we have good galleries, we have marketplaces, and people that are eager to work and to sell their work and to put on shows, and at the drop of a hat, like get tell people, artists, to be here at this spot, and you're gonna have musicians, dancers, performers, like people ready to you know put something on, especially if they haven't done anything in quite a while.
Why do you think that arts should be funded by not just governments, but also like people that have a lot of money, companies, especially developers, right? This comes up all the time.
Mm.
Like, what's in it for society to have the arts funded?
Yeah, I mean, like, Boston's like very gentrified, and
Yeah,
like and it
that's
keeps getting worse.
yeah.
And some of these places will have like, art shows, art calls for people that are in a very specific part of society, in a very specific level. And then there's like, um, those experiences are very tunneled in there. However, there's like so much talent, so much, diversity and experiences and history, and people that are super committed to their towns and to their neighborhoods and like absolutely love them. Like when we talk about like EC Pride, Mattapan Pride, Dorchester Pride, Southie Pride, like the artists are there to lead the way. That I almost feel like they're leading the parade in that, with the kind of work and stories that come out of it.
Because we're reflecting people's culture back at them basically
Yeah,
and telling them what's up. Is that
yes.
it? Oh.
It's not the gentrifier. We're not representing the gentrifiers. Like they can come and they can go and whatever. But there's people who are like, hey, my family has been here for XYZ time. Like we've been here how many generations? And so, this is what we sound like as not just, specific minority groups or ethnicities, but it's like this is what we're like as Bostonians. This is what we're like as JP people,
Right.
right? And so, and when we have people like that, like it just kind of makes things richer, and um, saturates their neighborhoods with that artwork, and that somebody who accidentally gets lost within, Southie, and starts to go on this kind of historic art walk and start seeing like, oh, like look at all of these things. Like
Mm.
it's a very beautiful experience, and I've experienced it myself, getting lost in the middle of like Austin or whatever, like, and I'm like, oh wow, like these are all the kinds of communities, or even LA, like the murals and everything like that. Like that is history that's being shown, and the galleries, and pop in or pop out. Like, there's something that speaks about that particular place.
So when you refer to yourself as an activist, do you mean, that you're both like a booster for the arts as an artist, as an active person out in the world, and also politically, or one or the other? Like, how do you frame that?
I feel like arts is also, not doesn't stray too far from the politics. We use arts to describe what is happening in our communities, and to create that change. So I would say I don't steer so much from that, but like the boosting of the arts, I believe the creating of arts, the existing in cultural institutions and academic spaces, as a working artist, to boost other artists up and say, hey, everybody should check out this person's work. Or I
Mm.
think that's kind of an activism as well in its sense.
Yeah.
The creation and the work that you do, is a form of activism, and it comes in different forms, right? Like some people are out there at the state capitol, like making sure, like, hey, like make sure you give like filmmakers that are shooting here in Boston, not New York, their tax breaks, right?
Yeah,
We
yeah,
have a lot of film people here that
we
are
do.
working hard. We don't outsource to New York. Um, and uh, yeah, like, and then there's people who are like getting people to petition and sign, this thing and give it to your local congressperson, and or start creating these spur of the moment art pieces or art performances in the park to describe something that's happening. So yeah, so activism certainly comes in that forms, and I enjoy taking part in whichever.
Cool. And how are you feeling about the incoming administration, the presidential administration? You think it's going to be better for the arts or worse or what?
I like it's hard because like I feel like, well, one, I feel like a sense of relief, like like this tension, this separation, this divisiveness, um, did create a lot of really good, powerful pieces and work from people.
True.
So that
That is
was
very
really
true.
good. And that
That's
can
a
mean things
plus.
for
Yeah.
me, right? And then there's a sense of a little bit of relief, but the work is still, there still needs to be a lot of work, right? So like
Oh,
it doesn't matter
definitely.
who is um are at our highest political office or anything like that, but um are our Congress people like still supporting the arts? We shouldn't have to rely on like just solely like the president, but like our senators listening to us, our representatives, our Congress people, like they're a little bit closer to us,
Mayor Mahdi, Charlie
Yeah.
Baker,
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Like they see us, we meet them, we go to events and we'll shake their hands, but like also be like, hey, like I exist, like I'm still working, and like, you should help us us to help you, kind of thing. So um yeah, I think that answered it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, any last words? Anything you want to finish up with?
I am I feel like now that, we have about a month left for this year to be over, and I think that it's been definitely a difficult time. It was not a very happy moment for me or other artists when we realized like our 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 shows and our gigs were over, and entertainment was on the brink of like just total collapse. But
Hmm.
I will say that there's always some kind of form of silver lining throughout all of this, right? I feel like spending this time by myself, quarantining and social distancing and things like that, like has made me more of a conscious artist of how I see myself, see myself in this city, like where see myself with the other artists, and like where, how can we take things further, and and we love our city, and I really look forward to continuously working with the city and the other artists to try to make this art scene happen,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't have to be an idea that just remains an idea reserved for um like other cities in the world. Like we are a really great city, and there's a lot of great artists that will happily show everybody why it is.
Cool. And how can viewers check out your work?
So all of my work is at mariaservellón.com. And I'm also on social medias at Maria Servellón. So I'm happy to chat with folks.
Okay. Well, great talking to you. And so thank you, Maria Servellón, for coming on today. And I'm going to chat with you a bit afterwards, but we'll just say bye to everybody. So bye.
Yeah. Bye. Thanks, Jason.
No problem. Thank you.